Welcome to episode 36 of the Sports Geek podcast. On today's episode, we catch up with Jeremy Monahan on his 10 years with the South Sydney Rabbitohs. We look at the latest changes that Facebook is making to the newsfeed and how it might affect your page. And look at the Super Bowl coming up between the Seahawks and the Broncos.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, who's checking the podcast download stats right now, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and thank you again for downloading and listening to the Sports Geek podcast. I was just checking the stats. We're closing in on 15,000 downloads, so very much appreciative of everyone who's downloaded, listened to, tweeted back about the show. Getting into this week's show, I'm past, touch wood, all the issues around technical difficulties. I've almost completely migrated to the new MacBook Pro. I've only had to use one laptop to produce this podcast. It was a hellish week last week, but back on deck. This week I chat with Jeremy Monahan from the South Sydney Rabbitohs about his time at the Rabbitohs. He's been there 10 years, so he's seen the change in communications side of the business and the rise of their digital arm and digital department. So have a good chat with him, and then also look at the latest changes to the Facebook newsfeed and on a recent release from Facebook, and what does that mean for teams using Facebook and using it as a means to share their content with fans. And then it is Super Bowl week, so we do look at the Broncos and the Seahawks, what they're doing in the lead up to the Super Bowl, and obviously we'll be watching on Monday, our time here in Australia, as it is one of the biggest days on the sports calendar. But here is my discussion with Jeremy Monahan from the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Very happy to welcome a good friend of mine from the South Sydney Rabbitohs, media and comms manager at the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Jeremy Monahan. Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, mate.
G'day, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
No problems. First of all, I want to congratulate you. You've just recently reached 10 years with the South Sydney Rabbitohs. You want to give us a little bit of background of how you got started with the Rabbitohs and how those 10 years have evolved?
Yeah, so actually started in the merchandise department here at the Rabbitohs. There was a position going there and managed to get my foot in the door that way and did that for about 18 months, and then the position of media and communications manager became available at the club, and the people in charge at the time, the CEO, knew that I had designs on wanting to get into sports media, so they gave me the opportunity to move into that role in October 2003, and now at the start of 2014 and still with the club and still in the media and communications manager position. So as you say, things have changed a lot over that time. It's gone away from just being the traditional media channels and the traditional ways of dealing with newspapers, radio and TV, and this digital revolution that's going on, particularly with sports, very exciting and really invigorated this part of our club, this department in our club, and I'm sure all sporting clubs across the world.
And another role, especially when you would have got started, it was you had to be very much a multitasker and perform a lot of different roles, which a lot of people who work in sports are very familiar with. But you're also the ground announcer for the Rabbitohs and the voice of the Rabbitohs for home games.
Yeah, that's true. It's probably the funnest part of my job, that half an hour before kickoff at the home games, where you really get to unleash and be a fan again. So you get to be out there, be a fan, be one of the people up in the stands and really get them fired up. And the team tell us it does have an impact on their performance, knowing that the 30,000 people in the stands are right behind them, and that's my role, to get them behind the team. So it is a lot of fun, and it makes game days very interesting.
So you were talking there before how it has changed from some traditional media, and the fact that 10 years ago you would have had to be sending faxes to the Daily Telegraph and those kind of things to let them know about team news, to now having your own digital department. You want to give us a bit of an idea of what your digital department looks like now and how it's sort of evolved over the past I guess, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, well, you're right when you say that about the fax machine. I remember when I first started here, we had the fax out at reception with the phone numbers to the Telegraph and the Herald and the Australian and the radio stations ready to go, and that's how we disseminated our information. But obviously things like that have changed through email and the evolution of all the social media channels now and digital media with websites, etc. A lot of that stuff has changed. So back in those days, it was just me on my own managing those traditional media outlets and the information that we put out that way, and everything was external. So everything was relying on those people to tell our stories and pass our information on, whereas once websites became the norm for sporting clubs, it was a way of us publishing our own content and delivering our own stories and our own messages. And now with the way that social media has exploded, particularly for us through Facebook, Twitter, and now the next one that's coming through for us is Instagram, we're basically becoming our own TV station through the videos we produce for online content, and our own radio station and our own newspaper and magazines and all that sort of stuff for all of our digital channels and digital assets that we've got now. So that's the way it's changed there. And also the amount of people in our team, we've grown to a team of 3 directly in our media department, with myself overseeing everything. We've got a video and digital media coordinator who looks after all of our video content plus our social media channels, and then we've got a digital content producer who looks after the website, making sure that all the copy and the content goes on there and that everything's looking good in the way that it should. And outside of that, into our sponsorship team, we've also got an account manager for digital assets, as we look to commercialise our digital assets now that we've got a foothold in that area.
I mean, website has been a real strong focus for the Rabbitohs. I mean, you did sort of go out on your own, and you had your own had the website out on your own platform, and you weren't part of the NRL network, and now you're back in the fold. With rabbitohs.com.au. Do you want to sort of talk about a bit of the reasoning about why you went out on your own to begin with, and then they're coming back to the NRL network?
Yeah, so basically every club had their own website of differing qualities and differing content. Then the NRL decided they were going to put in place the NRL Club Network, hoping to get NRL.com and all of the 16 clubs involved in that. And at the time, when those proposals were going out, we thought that we basically had a better product than what they were proposing, and that the financial modelling probably wasn't quite to the level that we needed to be able to give up our own IP and our own presence on the web to be underneath a blanket cookie cutter style web positioning that they wanted us to take. So it took us about 18 months in discussions with the NRL to get it all to where we were comfortable in coming across to the club network, and we've been across there for probably about 2 years now, and they're going through their second generation of the club network now, hopefully revealing some new websites soon and new apps and all that sort of stuff that we're working on at the moment. So we found that move across beneficial now that the NRL is up at a standard and the other clubs are bringing up to the standard that we felt that we were at. And it's a real positive for us now that, and also for the NRL, that they can go out with a 16 club plus 2 state leagues plus NRL.com to try and commercialise across the board.
And so I guess I wanted to sort of dig into a little bit about, your content strategy around everything that you're doing online. The Rabbitohs are one of the first NRL clubs to really embrace the membership message and really make that the mantra of the business. We're very familiar with that in AFL land. That's sort of the way that they've always been selling the message and getting people to buy membership. For the people who are listening in the UK and the US, membership is season ticket sales. Do you want to sort of take us through, I guess, that being a big focus for the Rabbitohs and how it has framed what your content strategy is?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you say, the AFL are probably 15 to 20 years ahead of the National Rugby League in terms of that membership messaging and the way that fans interact with their club, both from a heart share, but also financially in supporting their club through purchasing a membership, whether it be a season ticket or a non-ticketed membership. So when we had a look at the AFL clubs and their models, we thought, well, this is definitely a way that we should be going. And we not only sort of led the other NRL clubs, but also the NRL itself in making membership a real priority. So we've led the way there. We're currently just shy of 24,000 members for this year. We've got a goal of 32,000 members. We're about 8,000 members ahead of any other club at this point in time, which we're very proud of, the way that we do lead the way each and every year. And when you talk about our content strategy, our content strategy is always about members first. So if we've got a big announcement or something that will really affect our members or that they want to hear first, be it a player signing or even the weekly team announcement, which I know they can't do in the AFL because of the broadcast deal, but we make sure that our members get that information first because we want them to know that they are our most important stakeholder in this club and that they are part of us and that we let them know what's going on first before we let anyone know on our website, on our social media channels, even the media. They will always get the information before we send a media release out.
Yeah, and then that pretty much is, it is the driver for content. I mean, I know I have said a couple of times, when we're pushing things out to social and things like that, can we push it out to social first and get that wider cut through with other fans? But you've made that promise to your members that they will get it first, and that's one of the reasons why they want to. You want them to sign up, and so we've pretty much been using social as a promotional channel to drive them back to that message, to know that members are first, and really celebrating your season ticket holders in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, that you attract people and you take them on the journey through social media and digital media, and you want them to first of all discover the club, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter or something like that. Then they might go on to buy a hat or buy a ticket to a game, and then they'll become a member of the club and a ticketed member of the club and come to 10 games a year and really build that heart share that they've got in the club. And that's how we've tried to use social media in taking them on that journey to become a member or become a sponsor of the club or come into our merchandise store, and we try and pump those messages that members are first. So if you want to hear this information first, you're not necessarily going to get it. You will get it on Facebook and you will get it on Twitter, but you're not going to get it first. You need to be a member, and it'll arrive in your inbox before anyone else sees it.
Yeah, I mean, and the Rabbitohs, effectively, you have a very similar tale to. I think it's the Phoenix Suns that went down the same way. When you did start out Facebook, I remember one of the first things that I did with you guys was you had a fan run page that had more fans than your run page. And what we were able to do is to negotiate to take over that fan run page. I'm pretty sure the Phoenix Suns did the similar thing, and then that was a significant moment to give you a little bit of impetus. But then the idea was we're pushing out this content. It's all Rabbitohs content, and it's grown since, I think it might have been about 40,000 at that point, to nearly over 180,000 now. And really pushing that message of membership, but then also driving your content goals back to your website.
Yeah, well, I know one of the first things when we started working with you was it's about play where the fans play, and obviously for us that fan Facebook page, we're playing where our fans played. So it was important to us to be able to do that with our fans and to bring them in as members and to get them involved with the club. So that's a strategy that certainly worked with us.
So one of the things that that we have worked on before and is a constant struggle for sports teams on their social channels and to a lesser extent digital is working out ways to integrate your sponsors into that message. And I guess that story of how the Facebook page got started, we really had there were some real lessons learned early on, because we had to retrain these fans who are used to getting a whole lot of content and weren't getting some sponsor messages and those kind of things. So you guys have got Crown Resorts and DeLonghi on board as some of your, as your partners. How do you go about integrating the sponsor messaging into things like social, but also keep, I guess, the fans happy that they really just want to see footy news and want to know more about the players.
Yeah, so we're very mindful that you don't want to over-commercialise this stuff because it is about the fans and our members and the information that they want to hear. So what we try and do is work with the more digitally savvy sponsors, of which Crown Resorts and DeLonghi and Coke and these sorts of big companies that we work with are. And we try and integrate their sponsorship messaging into our content that we try and drive. So, for example, when we've got our coach sponsor, we will incorporate that into the video of our team announcement, which gets sent out, or we'll do some Facebook advertising around a certain competition or a certain home game with people like our major partners in Crown Resorts and DeLonghi. And we try and, rather than just spamming people with ads, we try and incorporate their messages in with our football content, which makes it attractive to our members and fans, and is obviously attractive to the sponsors because it's getting seen by more people and they're interacting with them, knowing that they're part of the Rabbitohs family, as is the person that's reading it, the fan.
And it is good also to extend the activations and the things that you're doing, game day, because you do a lot of stuff at ANZ Stadium to engage your fans again, to put them first, and it's your sponsors that are part of that, and that's where social can sort of amplify that experience of game day, because what you want is more fans turning up to the game. One of the big themes that I'm always stressing to the digital guys at all teams, but if the Rabbitohs, is to develop FOMO, that fear of missing out, and so I'm always pushing. To get out there, take photos of the fans, having a great time, engaging with these sponsor activations, whether it be, face painting or whatever it might be, because then the fans go, well, hang on, or maybe I should get up off the couch and not watch the game on TV. I should get out there because it looked like it was an absolute cracker of a game. And then it just leads on to that membership message. You get them to come to one or two, then you can start talking to them about a 3-game membership and those kind of things. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's something that we probably haven't been great at in the past, and that's something that we need to obviously improve on, is making people not want to miss out on coming to our games, and that's definitely part of our strategies for 2014 that we're working on around our home games, and it adds value to the game day sponsors and the major sponsors who are involved with our home games.
So I can't have a discussion about the Rabbitohs, especially for my international audience, because they probably will know the Rabbitohs name internationally. And one of the reasons is Russell Crowe as one of the co-owners of the Rabbitohs, and people might know him from a few movies they might have seen on Netflix. What's Russell Crowe's impact been like on the Rabbitohs, over the journey, while you've been there, but just from a brand perspective and reach and those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when Russell and also Peter Holmes Accord invested into the club, it was a really big turning point for the club because it gave us resources and profile that we didn't have before. We were obviously well known as the most successful club over the years. We won 20 premierships, which is the most in rugby league, and no one's really come close to that. But we had a profile within the sport, but not so great outside of the sport. And someone like Russell gives you that international exposure, and he is of great assistance to us, particularly in the digital area. But I sort of need to stress that it's all very much just Russell. We don't feed Russell messages. We don't try and word him up or anything like that. Russell is a fan of the football club, and you can see that when he's posting the score or telling fans when the next game's on, and he gets people tweeting him in America, how can I watch this game and how can I become an international member? You can see in his responses and his tweets that he is a fan and he understands what these people want to see. He's not out there as a marketing machine for us. He's there as one of the fans, and it's a real equaliser to put our fans and our members on the same level as an Oscar winner, really.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have a couple of times just said, come on, Jez, can't we just get Russell Crowe to tweet this message or use this hashtag? But yeah, he is very much his own man as far as, it's not a ghost-written Twitter account. It's not run by his agent. It's him.
Yep, absolutely.
And the good thing is, it is completely genuine that he loves the club. So,
yep. And I think that's part of the attraction of what he does. People know that it isn't his agent tweeting or posting any information, that it is actually him and it is coming from his heart, because he does love the Rabbitohs, he does love the club, and he's always got it at front of mind in anything that he does. So people know that they are an equal to someone that has won an Oscar, that has a great profile internationally when they're talking about the Rabbitohs, because he's one of them.
Yeah, and I guess the added benefit for you guys is that every now and again you'll see Christian Bale wearing a South Sydney hoodie, or Oprah Winfrey wearing a Rabbitohs hat.
Yeah, absolutely. He's obviously got those connections, and you often see photos from the set of whatever movie he's working on, and all the crew are wearing Rabbitohs hats or Rabbitohs T-shirts. So it's fantastic for helping grow that South Sydney family around the world, and also in attracting support internationally. And we saw that in 2008 when we went overseas. We went over to the US and played a game against an English team, the Leeds Rhinos, as a pre-season game on Australia Day. A game that really is quite foreign over in the US, but we sold out the stadium at the University of North Florida, 12,000 people there, and it's having people like him involved, and enabled us to do that and help grow the support of rugby league internationally once they got to come along and see what the sport has to offer.
And that does offer potentially some sort of an opportunity down the track, that if you were able to build up that fan base internationally, you can start packaging an international membership where fans can feel like they're part of the team, even though they can't be attending games, in Sydney.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually do have an international membership, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I would dare say to be around 500 or 600 people mark that are international members of the club, which is a fair chunk for a sport that's mainly played in 2 or 3 countries around the world. So, it's great to have that sort of profile internationally.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I look forward to catching a game out at ANZ Stadium and hear your golden tonsils fire up the Rabbitohs crowd. Good luck with the season ahead, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks very much, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Jeremy Monahan. As always, you can always find all the ways to connect with guests from the show in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/36, the number of the podcast. And also, if you go to the Sports Geek podcast homepage, there's also a link to every single guest. Connect with them on Twitter and LinkedIn. They're all smart sports business and sports digital marketing people. This week's big question, it's one that I've been answering a fair bit with clients, pretty much revolves around EdgeRank. It's a constant source of discussion, source of frustration as teams trying to figure out what Facebook wants. So we've constantly tried testing and deciding what type of content we put up, and they actually sent out a press release on their newsroom feed. Specifically for pages and how they're seeing the newsfeed change. Now, part of it, you have to really realise what Facebook are trying to do as a product, and so there's a couple of hints in there. If you look at Mark Zuckerberg's last keynote with the last changes, he did describe Facebook as a personalised newspaper. So they're really trying to get into that space of being the place where users find their news. And they're obviously setting themselves up in a bit of a battle for Twitter, because Twitter likes to also claim that space. Facebook have just recently released their own effectively Flipboard style app, Paper, on iOS. Download that if it is available where you can download. It's only just been released. So they're really taking this news focus. And so I think this is where this latest change comes from. They did some tests around status updates and saw that more that friends posted status updates, the more their friends did. But it's not the same from a page point of view, and they're really pushing now to asking page owners, or they've effectively said in this post, is rather than posting just a text update, they want to see more link shares. And they've done some things to make those link shares not as ugly as they were in the past. So they've really tried to make sure that when you are sharing a link, it does pull in the nice big image. So usually the tactic that we've been using for the last couple of years has been sharing a photo. Usually, over time it has changed, but usually a square photo takes up a lot of real estate. And then using a bit.ly link to link to the story. Facebook seems to be changing away from that style of post and also away from the text-only post. So I'm really thrilled that they've actually come out and said we're moving away from the text-only post. I do feel like there's been a lot of social media managers chasing EdgeRank and chasing reach. The Facebook insights show quite conclusively that if you do a text update, it appears to get further reach. So I do see a lot of teams almost using Facebook like Twitter in 2009, where it's just a text update. And for me, that's not really what the fans want. And I think that's a social media manager or a digital coordinator, whatever you want to call yourselves. That's someone that's just really focused on their stats. So I'm a real big believer in keep producing the content that your core fans like. And so it is big images, and it is big stories, but make it visual and use the visual aspect. That's photos were what made Facebook what it is today. It is why it bought Instagram. It is why that it sees things like Snapchat as a potential threat, because it likes to keep that photo platform. But yeah, I would really take this on board and really look to mix it up a little bit. One of the advantages of using the link share, is one, you get the image, and again, if you're going to do the image, upload your own image if your CMS is not pulling in the correct image. So that image size is 980 by 512, and then you'll get a perfect image. You can put your sponsor logos on it, like we spoke with Jeremy at the Rabbitohs. You can put on Crown Resorts or DeLonghi or whoever's your sponsor on that image and provide them with a bit of brand value. But the opportunity there is that, one, you can put the link there, but then also in the text above your link, you could also have another link. So have that secondary link. So you might have one post that is the match preview, that's really the guts of the post and why the fans are liking it. But you can also then provide a ticketing link in the text above it. So you could say, here's the preview for this week's game. Don't forget, you can still get tickets. Provide that link in a bit.ly form or something like that. But then the fans can still engage with that content. I think that's one way to sort of give that double link. I'm not a fan of teams that have been, link stuffing a Facebook post, like putting up a picture and then here's 6 links of things that are happening on our site. That just gives a fan too much choice. It doesn't give them any reason to do anything. There's no single call to action. One of the things that Facebook does really well is that single call to action. So if you're going to put something up on Facebook, pick one thing, and that's why link share works. And then if you have got that secondary thing, and I know it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but that secondary thing that they are interested in, like buying tickets or that kind of thing, you can do that with the when you're using the link share. So keep an eye on it. Don't be beholden to the Facebook insights, because they're not always right. They are constantly changing, but really, track the stats that matter to you. Driving traffic back. Does it affect, what traffic do you get when you post a link post as opposed to a post with a picture with a bit.ly link? You need to do those tests to find out what your fans like to do, how they want to consume. You might find an image gets shared more, so you get access to newer fans, whereas a link might drive more traffic. So need to be doing testing on those things and keeping an eye on what your fans want the most.
Like the Sports Geek podcast? Find us on facebook.com/sportsgeek.
So this weekend, or Monday in Australia, Super Bowl Sunday is happening. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Denver Broncos. Lucky enough to have Kenton Olsen on the show a couple of weeks ago, episode 34, where he talked about the tapped-in activation. That's now had over 100,000 people tapping in to show their support for the Seahawks. So you can listen to that podcast back on episode 34, sportsgeekhq.com/34. So we had a quick look for our social media post of the week and looked at both what the Seahawks are doing and also what the Broncos are doing. And so I've decided to split the decision this week, and I may announce who's the winner after the Super Bowl. But in the lead up to the Super Bowl, I have picked two posts that I really did like, both having different focus. So for the Seattle Seahawks, they actually shared a really nice native video, straight on Facebook, inviting their fans to follow the Seahawks plane with actually a flight tracker. So again, a great way to connect the fans to the team and help them feel like they're in New York with the team. And for the Broncos' point of view, they are obviously driving to build up their Instagram followers. Now, they have nearly 250,000 people on Instagram, but that is dwarfed by their Facebook numbers of over 2 million. So they've really made a concerted effort to drive more fans to Instagram and tell that pictorial story. So the image I've shared in the show notes is a shot of the Super Bowl game ball. So again, just remembering that you've got to promote all your channels on different channels. So there's the clock wind up, which tells me it's time to dedicate this show, get out, wind it up, and let you get back to your running or whatever you're doing to listen to this podcast. So this is episode 36. I had some really good nominations. Being Super Bowl week, I had a few NFL fans nominate Jerome Bettis. Had some AFL nominations for Simon Goodwin from the Crows, Dane Swan from Collingwood. Even had a left field nomination of Sir Garfield Sobers, who was once famous for hitting 6 sixes in a row, or in an over, which is in cricket, obviously, and that obviously adds up to 36. So thanks, David. A fine nomination. Unfortunately, my fandom is still going to come out. Rasheed Wallace wore 36 for the Detroit Pistons and, for a short time, the New York Knicks. And I was always a big fan of what Sheed would do for the Pistons. Now, sounds of the game. And again, I've kept with the NFL and the Super Bowl theme. We know, and we've spoken to Kenton about the Seahawks fans, and one captured the final moments of the NFC game. Now, the cool thing about that, like the South Sydney Rabbitohs, that wasn't an ordinary fan. That was Grammy Award-winning Macklemore capturing that shot from the sideline in its all its glory on that final possession of the NFC game. So it is great when you can get celebrities connected with your sports team. So it's time for the closing 2 cents. With big events like the Super Bowl or grand finals, if you're running the digital for your team, you've got to remember how you got there. You've got to stay focused on delivering to your fans first.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Want to maximize returns from your digital team? Contact Sports Geek about content and commercialization workshop. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.